Now let's do question number 12. This one says that you invest $18,000 of money at an interest rate of 3.21%. And it says it's compounded continuously. And it says, how much money will you have in 5 years? So the time is equal to 5 years. And then it gives us a formula. One of the formulas is P times 1 plus R over N to the power of NT. But it also gives us another formula. It says P of T equals P0 e to the KT. So on the final, you might see some formulas that don't look quite the same as what you've learned. But the key thing is you have to be able to recognize which one of them is for continuously. If you get interest continuously, which one is for that? And this one, the one with E in it, is the one that's for continuous. The one without the E in it, that one, that interest, P1 plus R over N to the NT, that's called A equals the amount of interest you get that's compounded monthly or quarterly or anything that's not continuously. So we're going to use this formula right here to do this problem. And P naught just means the amount of principal that you have. So that's, by the way, that looks like a 0. It looks like P0. So P0 is just the amount of money you started with. So that's $18,000. And then E is just E. K is the interest rate. So you have to change it to a decimal. So if you have 3.21%, you move the decimal point over 2 points to the left, you'd have 0.0321. And then time, that's the years, so 5 years. Next, you have to multiply the 5 times the 0.0321. So that would be, let's see, 321 times 5. That'd be 1,500, 1,605. So it'd be 0.1605. And then 18,000. Now the problem on the final that I've always seen before, it specifically says that you can, if you don't have a calculator, that you can just give the formula that you would use to get the answer on a calculator. So this is as far as I'm going to go because I don't have a calculator right now. So the amount of interest, the amount of money you'd have in 5 years total would be 18,000 times E to the power of 0.1605. Now let's do example 13. It says, find the equation of the line through the points given. So how do you find the equation of the line that passes through these points? You start out by finding the slope of the line. The slope of the line is the second y value minus the first y value, divided by the second x value minus the first x value. So it's -1 minus -7 over 4 minus -4. And that equals 1 plus 7 over 4 plus 4. That's 8 divided by 8. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, that was easy. Oh no, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It is not quite so easy because it's actually -1 plus 7 on the top. So -1 plus 7 is actually 6. 4 plus 4 on the bottom, that is 8. However, a 6 over 8 reduces down by 2 to be 3 over 4. So it's not quite as great as I thought it was at first. So the slope is 3 over 4. Now the way to do the rest of the equation of the line is to use the formula y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So you're going to do y minus y1, which is -7, equals m times x minus x1, which is -4. The y minus -7 is really y plus 7. And m is really 3/4. And x minus -4 is really x plus 4. So now I'm going to distribute the 3/4. So distribute the 3/4, you'll get 3/4 times x. Distribute the 3/4 times the 4, and you'll get 12/4. So y plus 7 equals 3/4 x plus 12/4. Next, though, I'm going to put the 7, move that over there to the end. So then I'll get y equals 3/4 x plus 12/4, which breaks down to 3. And then it'll be minus 7 because that 7 moved over to the other side. So the very final equation for the answer is y equals 3/4 x, and then plus 3 minus 7 is -4. So the equation of the line that goes through the 2 points that we started with is y equals 3/4 x minus 4. Now let's go to number 14. This example says to find the intercepts and graph this line. So the intercepts are the values of x and y that you get if you plug in 0 for y and calculate x, which is the x-intercept, or if you plug in 0 for x and calculate y, which is the y-intercept. So if I do this, if I take the equation and I plug in 0 for y, I will get 4 times 0, which is nothing. So I'll get 3x equals 12. 3 times what equals 12? X has to equal 4, because 3 times 4 equals 12. So the x-intercept is 4. So I'm going to start my graph by plotting 4 onto the x-axis. That's my first point. Then I'm going to find the y-intercept by doing the same process, except this time I'm going to backtrack and I'm going to leave y there, but I'm going to plug in 0 for the value of x. So 3 times 0 is nothing. So I'll just get 4y equals 12. 4 times what equals 12? Y would have to equal 3 because 4 times 3 equals 12. So y-intercept is 3. Then you just simply draw a line through those points and connecting them together. And then that's the graph. So we have done what the instruction said, which is to graph the line by using the x and y intercepts and finding the x and y intercepts as well. So there's that. Now let's do number 15. Number 15 is still more about lines. It says graph the line that goes through the point -5, 2 and has a slope of -3/5. So how do I graph the line that goes through that point? Well, I start by plotting that point. So go to -5, +2, plot that point nice and clearly. And then from that point, you're going to start at that point, and then you're going to follow the slope. So the top of the slope is -3. So the rise equals -3. The bottom of the slope is +5. So the run equals 5. So the rise is vertical and the run is horizontal. So from the first point that I plotted, I'm going to go vertically down 3. So go 1, 2, 3 units down. Then you're going to run forwards, horizontally forwards 5 units. So go from that point, you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units forwards. And then you plot your point, your next point. So I'm going to plot a point right at that point, and then, so that's the line that goes through -5, 2 and has a slope of -3/5. Then I'm going to draw the line as it requested us to do, that goes through that point and has that slope. And then I'm finished. Now let's look at example 16. So example 16 says you have a function that looks like this. And this is a parabola. And it says to find the vertex and find the axis of symmetry. So first I'll find the vertex. So this particular parabola has shifted left 3 because of that. And it has shifted down 4 because of that. So this problem is asking us about transformations of functions right now. So the vertex is where it's shifted to, which is to -3 because it moved left 3, and to -4 because it went down 4. That's the vertex. And then now we have to know what we know about parabolas. Parabolas can open up or down. Because this parabola has a positive number in front of it, it has a positive 2 in front of it, that means the parabola opens up. So if a parabola opens up from the point -3, -4, it's going to look like this. From that point, it's going to be opening upwards. And that means that if you folded a piece of paper in half, you could actually cut this out and make a mirror image right through the middle. Just like when you fold a paper and cut Valentine's out of it when you're a little kid. So that's the mirror image of it right through the middle. That mirror image line is called the axis of symmetry. And the question on the final that they've asked before says, what is the axis of symmetry? And that is the vertical line, which means it has to start with X, because vertical lines always start with an X. Don't leave out the X or else it's not vertical. So the axis of symmetry is X equals, and then in order for it to go through X equals -3, it has to be at X equals -3. So that's the axis of symmetry, which is the line that folds right through the middle of the parabola. Next, it says find the y-intercept. So what's the y-intercept? Well, this is the best part. All you have to do to find the y-intercept is plug in 0 into the formula. So what is the formula if you plug in 0? You'll get 2 times 0 plus 3 squared minus 4, which equals 2 times 3 squared minus 4. 3 squared is 9, so it's 2 times 9 minus 4. That's 18, and 18 minus 4 is 14. So the y-intercept is the point 0, 14, and that's the y-intercept. So we found everything that they asked for, which was the vertex, the axis of symmetry, and the y-intercept. Let's do example 17. 17 says to solve y to the 4th minus 5y to the 2nd plus 4 equals 0. So first, let's break apart the y to the 4th into y squared times y squared. Then let's bring this first sign down. Then let's multiply this sign times this sign, which is negative times positive is a negative. So this sign is a negative as well. Now let's multiply the number that's in the front of it, which is an invisible number, 1. Multiply that number times the last number, 1 times 4. So 1 times 4, and then break that apart into 1 times 2 times 2. We need to find a way to group those numbers together to get a group that if we put those two numbers from that pair into those blank boxes, that will end up with a -5. So this one looks easier than the one I did earlier in the review. So I'm just going to group the 1 together as one group and the 2 times 2 together as the other group. Because if I have a 1 and a 4, that will make a 5. So I'll put the biggest one first. So 4 and then a 1. And now notice that now I have a -4 and a -1, which adds up to make -5, which is in the middle of the original problem. So that's perfect. But then I can break down y squared minus 4 even further into being y minus 2 times y plus 2, like this. And I can break apart the y squared minus 1 even further into y minus 1 times y plus 1. Then I can set each of those factors equal to 0 on their own. If I set this factor alone equal to 0, then I can move the -2 over to get +2. And then the same thing with this one. If I set this factor alone equal to 0, I can move the 2 over and get y equals -2. And then the same thing, every single solution is the opposite. So the y minus 1 solution would be y equals 1. The y plus 1 solution would be y equals -1. So I have found the 4 solutions to this equation, just like they wanted me to. Now let's do number 18. So number 18 says 12 plus 3i minus 5 minus 6i. So the first thing we do is to distribute if there's anything in front of them. Well, there's nothing really in front of this one except for an invisible 1. So 1 times 12 is 12. 1 times 3i is just 3i. This problem is almost so easy. However, though, in my experience, students actually sometimes miss this question and get it wrong because it's so easy that they think they need to do something more complicated than what it says. Now, there was also an invisible -1 in front of this one. So -1 times 5 is -5. -1 times -6i is +6i. Now we're going to combine the like terms together. So 12 plus -5 is 7. And then +3i plus 6i is 9i. So the answer is that easy. It's just 7 plus 9i, and then we're done. The next question is a little harder than that, though. So let's do example number 19. This one wants us to do 4 minus 3i divided by 2 minus 5i. How do you divide using complex numbers? You have to look at the bottom of it, 2 minus 5i, and then use the same values, 2 and 5i, except you switch the sign between them. This is called multiplying by the conjugate. And what it does is rationalize the denominator. However, whatever you multiply the bottom side of a fraction by, you also have to multiply the top side by when you're working with a fraction. Just like if you're working with an equation, whatever you have to multiply one side of the equation by, you have to multiply the other side by it. It's the same way when you're working with a fraction instead of an equation. So we multiply both sides of the fraction by the same thing. Now we need to distribute everything. So I'll start with the top. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 5i is 20i. -3i times 2 is -6i. -3i times +5i is -15i squared. Then I'll go to the bottom. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 5i is 10i. -5i times 2 is -10i. -5i times +5i is -25i squared. So right away, I notice that I can cross out the 10i and the -10i. And then I also notice that in the top, I can combine together the 20i and the -6i into being 14i. So on the top, I have 8 plus 14i minus, then I actually notice one more thing. I squared is equal to -1. So where you have the two I squareds on the top and bottom, you're going to change both of those to equal -1 because that's what I squared is -1. So 4 minus 25 times -1. Then we're going to simplify it even more because -15 times -1 is actually +15. -25 times -1 is actually +25. On the top, we have 8 plus 14i plus 15. The bottom, we have 4 plus 25. So then we'll get 8 and 15 combined together to make 23 and plus 14i. 4 and 25 together combined to equal 29. So the answer is 23 plus 14i over 29. Now let's do number 20. So number 20 is an important problem. It gives us a function f of x equals 3x minus 8, and then 2x minus 8 in the bottom. And it says to find f of 4 minus y. So what does that mean? That means we have to take the problem that we're given, which is 3 times x minus 8 and 2 times x minus 8. We have to take the problem we're given and we have to plug into it the value that it has, f of 4 minus y. So we have to plug in 4 minus y into the function, the formula of the function f. So it would be 3 times 4 minus y, and 2 times 4 minus y. And then the minus 8 in the top and bottom. So 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times negative y is negative 3y. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times negative y is negative 2y, and negative 8. So we get 12 take away 8 is 4. So we get that. 8 take away 8 is nothing, so it's just that. So what we get is, the answer is f of 4 minus y equals 4 take away 3y over negative 2y. Perfect. Now let's do example 21. And this one says f of x equals 5x take away 2 and over x minus 2. And then it says g of x equals 4x minus 5. Then it says find f circle g parentheses 2. What does that circle mean? It doesn't mean fog. It means f of g of 2. So this is actually like a dot-to-dot game that you might have played when you were a kid, drawing in a coloring book. So you take the 2, connect it to the what's beside it, which is g. So that means you have to find g of 2. So g of 2 is 4 times 2 take away 5, which is equal to 8 minus 5. 8 minus 5, which is 3. Then you take the 3 that you got. So I'm going to write down 3 now in red. And then you take this circle right here, just means recycle, or keep plugging in like a dot to dot. So once you get 3, you recycle that and you plug the last answer into the next step. Just like in dot to dot, you connect the last dot to the next dot, and you connect that dot to the next dot. So the last answer we got was 3. Now we plug in 3 into f. So we take the 3 that we got, plug that into f. That's why it's called the composition of functions. So you put the result of one function into the next function. So f of 3 is 5 times x minus 2 over x minus 2. So we're taking this function f right there at the top. We're plugging 3 into it. And then we get 5 times 3 is 15. Take away 2. 3 minus 2 is 1. So it's equal to 13 over 1, which equals 13. So our final answer to the whole problem is f circle g parentheses 2 equals 13. That's that. All right, then now let's do question number 22, which says f of x equals x take away 5 over 3x plus 2. And this particular problem says to find f to the power of negative 1 of x. And the name of that is also sometimes called the inverse. So what does it mean if it says to find the inverse of a function? What is the inverse of a function? Well, this is a 4-step process. And the first step of finding the inverse of a function is to take the function's name and change it to be just the variable y. So if I do that, then I'm going to get this to happen. I'll get, instead of f of x equals x minus 5, it'll be y equals x minus 5 over 3x plus 2. The next step after changing the name of the function to be the letter y, this is the critical step. You have to change the names of all the x's to be called y, every x to be called y, and you change the name of all the y's to be called x. So I'm going to take the letter y and change it to be called x. Then I'll take the letter x and change it to be y. I'll take the other x and also change it to be y. So I've switched the letters x and y. with each other. The next step is to solve for y. So the third step is solve this equation for y. In other words, get y by itself. And in order to do that, I'm going to cross multiply the bottom of that side times that side. So we're going to do x times 3y, which is 3xy. Then we're going to do x times 2, which is also in the bottom of the right side. So actually, let me just write this out. So it's x times 3y plus 2. So move that up to be multiplied by the x equals y minus 5. Then if I distribute that x, it'll be 3xy plus 2x equals y take away 5. Now I'm going to have to get the y's to be on the same side as each other. So this y needs to move left, and this 2x needs to move right. So I'll get 3xy, but the y that's on the right is a negative y when I move it to the left. And then the 2x that was on the left is a negative 2x after moving it to the right. Now what I do is I factor out a common factor of y on the left. Then I'm left with 3x take away 1 because there's an invisible 1 in front of that y. So if I take the y out, then that negative 1 is still there. Last but not least, I'm going to take this value 3x minus 1, divide it underneath the right side. So y equals negative 2x minus 5 over 3x minus 1, like that. Finally, the fourth and final step of finding the inverse function is to change the name of y to be called f to the power of negative 1 of x, which means f inverse of x, which is called the inverse function. So the final answer looks like this. F to the power of negative 1 of x equals negative 2x minus 5 over 3x minus 1. Perfect. So that's the solution to that problem.